O'clock, and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Finance and Auditing Committee of Thursday, April 24th, 2025. Before we begin, please note the meeting is being recorded. Welcome to everyone joining us here in person. We have people in person, we do, as well as those listening in on the phone. If you'd like to provide public comment at today's meeting, and if you have not done so already, please let Thomas in the back of the room know, or Justine on the call-in line, what items you would like to speak to, and you'll get your turn. Madam Secretary, would you please begin by calling the roll?
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Director Devlin will be first.
Here.
Giudice.
Here.
Hernandez.
Here.
Maston.
Here.
Rodoni.
Here.
Vice Chair Parr.
Present.
Chair Rabbit is absent. President Cochran.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. You're just exactly a committee of the whole. You also have in the room Directors Hardiman, Hill, and that makes it. That rounds us out.
Thank you. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers located on the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. We'll begin with agenda item number 3, which is ratification of previous actions by the Auditor Controller. The staff report begins on page 5, and Monique Spike from PFM is here with us today to go over the PFM investment report that begins on page 9. I'm okay. Are you okay? Oh, okay. We don't intend to knock people over.
I'm fine.
Monique, welcome.
Good morning.
And please take us through your report.
All right, certainly. I'd like to start with a correction on page 7 of the packet, which shows a summary of the investments made between March 18th and April 14th. The U.S. Treasury note with a purchase date of April 7th is showing a percent yield of 1.25%. That is actually the coupon rate on that security. That security was purchased with a yield of 3.65%. And that takes me to my first commentary on the markets. As you know,
I think we're hoping you do.
As you know, there's been a lot of uncertainty in the fixed income markets lately, much of which has been driven by the policy of the Trump administration. Interest rates on the 2-year Treasury have fluctuated a bit with expectations about what the Federal Reserve is going to do. A couple of things are true. Over the month, the Fed has reiterated its expectation that inflation itself is going to go up, mainly due to the self-inflicted tariff policy of the administration. And 2, that growth expectations are going down, meaning that the expectation that the economy will have positive growth has declined. Now, what that has resulted in is a decline in interest rates. So if you look on page 10 of your packet, you can see that the 2-year Treasury, which is a great proxy for where we earn income in the district's portfolio, has continued to decline. Month over month, the 2-year Treasury was down 11 basis points, ending the month of March at 3.8%. Today, the 2-year Treasury is lower still at 3.81%. Furthermore, the expectation that the Fed is going to lower rates continues to increase. Keep rates the same has continued to increase. So now the expectation is that we may have less than 3 rate cuts this year. Possibility that the Fed may continue to keep rates high for even longer. So what does that mean? It means that you have interest rates going down. You also have the expectation that the Fed is not going to do anything with interest rate policy. I think that's a clear sign that there's too much uncertainty in the market and that we're getting closer to a stagflation expectation, which means that costs are going to rise significantly, but growth is going to decline. The big trade news in the markets right now is what is going on with the China tariffs. And unfortunately, the information that we're getting out of the administration is unclear. President Trump earlier this week suggested after meetings with major retailers that, they may be reducing the tariffs on China significantly. Unfortunately, China came out with a clarification statement this morning saying there have been no talks with the Trump administration, and they're not planning to revise, call, come to the table, what have you. So where does that put us? Uncertainty. No one knows. So what's our strategy in the midst of all this? Well, our strategy is continuing to manage the district's portfolio with a focus on safety. And as you saw on page 7 when you looked at the transactions, and also on page 16 of your packet, we continue to purchase securities for the district with a variety of maturities in a number of different industries. We believe at times like this, the most important thing is to stick to the fundamentals of the investment strategy. First being safety, focusing on diversification across the strategy. So we're purchasing treasuries, but you'll also notice we're purchasing corporate securities and other types of investments. We're focusing on liquidity of the assets, making sure that we are targeting your cash flow needs. And what we call that is sort of sticking to the benchmark. So just focusing on cash flow needs in the portfolio, and the return expectations are essentially what they are. Rates are down, rates are up. We're just really focusing on matching your maturity bandwidth. If you take a look at page 18 of your packet, and I'll continue to emphasize this as we go along in the coming months, our goal is to make sure that you're appropriately diversified, not only by sector, but also by issuer within the sectors. The industrial companies in the portfolio may be under a little bit of pressure with the uncertainty around the tariffs in terms of production lines. We are closely watching that. We have a team of economists that we are leaning on in these times as well to get more clarity on how sort of global trade, supply lines, et cetera, will impact some of the industrials. Our credit teams are very involved in those conversations with the economists. They're doing a lot of work to see how the tariffs are really going to impact cash flow. We're really happy with the credit process. We feel very comfortable with the names in the portfolio. You can see your maturity distribution on the bottom left here, and you can see that you are well distributed across the maturity curve. That means that if we do need to raise cash, we'll be able to do so without a lot of pressure in terms of the interest rate environment. And we think that that is the most important thing right now. Being safe, being conservative, making sure that we know what your cash flow needs are, staying in very close communication with your staff, which we have been doing. And we think that's going to serve us well. Uncertainty is going to be a theme of the markets for the foreseeable future. We're paying a lot of attention, but it's unfortunate that there's not a lot of clarity coming from the top. Other good news, President Trump said that he was not planning to fire Chair Powell. We don't think he ever had the ability to actually do so, but that seemed to give the markets, a bit of a calming effect earlier this week. Now with that, I'll take questions.
Are there any questions for Monique? Yes, Jim.
Morning, and thank you. Quite a bouncing ball. Back to page 3, I had a quick question. So bank CD, you show in the 2%. What I'm seeing in, the banks are advertising now is more in 4% area, and I just wonder if consumers have a different position relative to that than we do.
Yes, that is correct. And so for the CD rates that banks are able to offer governmental entities, they have to be collateralized in a certain way. So there's a cost for banks to offer certificates of deposit and deposit products to municipalities.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, comments? Thank you very much. I personally appreciate your calm demeanor. It doesn't feel that calm. But I think you give us a little hope when you come in and clearly the PFM takes a serious look at all of our assets and our money. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Stay calm is what you're telling us.
Absolutely.
We can try that. All right.
Thank you.
This concludes the discussion on number 3. Before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
Speakers on this item.
Right, thank you. May I have a motion on item number 3?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Let the record show there's no opposition and the motion passes. We have no budget adjustments or transfers or actions related to grant programs this month, so we'll move on to item 6, which is the annual review of the district's 457E deferred comp and 401A defined comp programs. The staff report begins on page 27, and Jennifer Minucci will present this report. Morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
Please begin.
Thank you. Good morning, Finance Committee, members of the whole. I have before you an annual review of our 457 deferred compensation, 401A defined contribution programs. This runs from December to December, so as we know, the market has shifted, but this is just your annual report of how the programs work and what your staff have been doing. We had a meeting between district staff, and we also have a consultant from NFP Retirement that helps us review the plan performance and statistics of the district's programs. In particular there's a 2022 Secure 2.0 Act that was signed into law, and that alters how a participant can save and withdraw money. So as part of that, we ensure that we're meeting those compliance changes. You can see on the chart on page 28 of your packet or page 2 of the report, some of the work that we've been doing to make some of that compliance, which I think has actually been good for the district participants. Some of them are optional, so we have chosen things like allowing withdrawals for federally declared disasters or the higher catch-up contribution for ages 60 to 62. So part of that act is reviewing that and making sure that we're in compliance with that act. Overall, the program has had success in its participant involvements. We actually had, which is good for us, 183 one-on-one consultations with Mission Square, which means that the district participants are active in looking at their plans and talking to Mission Square. We also have increased a lot of education for staff. We've got some workshops that we do and opportunities and seminars just to learn about how they save for retirement, what their plans are. One of the most significant things worth noting this year is that we were able, through negotiations with Mission Square, to drop our record-keeping fee from a 0.04% to a 0.028%, which is a 30% drop. Alice, of course, being on my staff, has done the math, and she said, actually, if you look at where it was in 2019, it was at 0.115%. So we've actually had a 65% drop in the last 5 years. And so that's considered, significant in the record keeping fees. So we just kind of chip away at it. And
isn't that what we pay the finance department for, is to
absolutely
make the numbers so we understand them?
Yeah. And also what's really great about that is that money is used to kind of reinvest in some of these workshops and make sure that we kind of keep the participants' investments kind of in review, and we really want to do education for our staff. One of the other things that was negotiated was that anybody that has a $50,000 account balance has access to a certified finance planner. I mean, on the outside, that's a pretty big value of like $5,000 to $8,000, but that allows the individuals to go in and actually look holistically at their portfolios, which normally you would get kind of in the outside world, you have to pay for that. So we consider that a really nice benefit to this plan. The rest of the report really describes the plan performance in detail from December to December. There was a $15.1 million increase in assets in the 457 plan, and the number of the participants remained relatively flat at 924 participants. And the active plans have slightly decreased, but that's because we've got retirements that come in, so they go from active to retirement plans per se. You can read more about the plan asset allocation in Exhibit A, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jennifer on this item? That meant you explained it well, right? Thank you for your presentation. That concludes the discussion on this item. But before we move on, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We have no speakers on this item.
All right, thank you. No action is needed on item number 6, so we'll continue on item number 7, which is the status report on the fiscal year 24-25 budget. It begins on page 39, and Jennifer, you're up again.
Thank you. As you know, this is your monthly status report on the budget. If you turn to page 41 of the packet, it'll walk through where we started again from a budget perspective. We thought we'd be $36.2 million in the negative, and as we've kind of gone down, we are currently sitting at $8.9 million as a shortfall. And again, as a reminder, we have an unrealized market value gain, which is a kind of on paper what we look like on a monthly basis. So if you weren't to count on that, because that's just on paper, we're looking at a $17 million shortfall, which is about the same as last month. So we're remaining flat on revenues and expenses. So we've been balancing out. And so as we get through the 9 months, we are better than we had anticipated, at least from a budget perspective.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions or comments or concerns on this particular item? So that concludes the discussion on this item. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
No speakers on this item.
All right, thank you. There's also no action associated with this action. With number 7, we'll move on to number 8, which is the monthly review of Golden Gate Bridge traffic tolls and bus and ferry transit patronage fares, as well as item 9, the monthly statement of revenue and expenses, and item 9B, the monthly statement of capital programs and expenditures. Jennifer.
All right. Since we were at 9 months, I'll kind of do a third quarter review. On page 51 of your packet, kind of in this becomes a micro font, but it is a really good tool I use all the time to look at all our operations between bridge, bus, and ferry and how the ridership and traffic is doing compared to the fares and tolls. So starting at bridge, you can see we are actually really flat. I mean, you will hear me next month, we'll be talking kind of about bridge traffic. And overall, we've been pretty flat from last year. So you'll see actual to actual on the bottom, we're only at 0.5% increase. But I think that just means that we finally have figured out what our trend is. We're always looking for something new. It is spring coming up and things happening in the city. So we look forward to see what our traffic does for this spring. But right now, we're staying steady, which I think is actually good news. As you know, you have a 5-year toll plan. So on the toll side, we're seeing about a 3.5% increase overall through 9 months of this year. On the bus, it's been steadily climbing. It's overall 4.5%. So even this month was a 4% increase from last year in terms of ridership. I will say as I'm starting to look at the budget more closely, the fare revenue, on the other hand, we do also have a 5-year fare plan, but we're trying to readjust kind of to what we have more local than commute service. So the fares instead of distance based, we'll have kind of closing the gap a little bit more on what we anticipated. And I'll talk a little bit more about that next month. For ferry, they're having a great month. So far actually in April as well. So you'll see them steadily climbing. They had 14% increase in ridership last month. Overall, they're 11.5% going into the 9 months, and their fare revenue also has increased 7.7% overall for 9 months, and that's also because you did a 5-year fare plan. So overall, it's trending where we anticipated, and doing well. Happy to answer any questions on this if you have them.
Thank you. Other questions for Jennifer? Steiner.
Is this reflected on the meter, or is it the just kind of the?
You mean for ferry? Yeah, right now it's a reflection, but we're also starting baseball, so you'll have special events service also start to mix in.
We are seeing steady growth in particularly Larkspur Ferry. On Tuesday, the 7:55 trip this Tuesday morning had 446 passengers on a 450 passenger boat. That's all commute passengers. So Larkspur on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays is solid, and it's continuing to grow. The recreational side, on tourism, I would say that with the new administration and tariffs and other things, that international tourism will probably not increase. It probably will decrease. So the Sausalito tourism market may suffer a little hit there. But the Giants ballpark last year was the best since 2015, even though the Giants were not that great. And the Giants are off to a pretty good start, and so we're selling out boats to the ballpark. So, I think, things are headed in the right direction overall. We just wish bridge traffic came back a little faster.
Richard, do you think you change?
Do we know where the passengers are coming from that are getting on the Larkspur Ferry? Do we track that? Is there any way to track that?
Well, we can tell you how many come from Smart. That's the question.
I was going to say,
It's a very, very small percentage.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the vast majority of our Larkspur Ferry passengers come from the Ross Valley. The vast majority choose to drive to the ferry terminal. But we do have folks coming from Smart, and it is a growing portion of that ridership, but it is not significant. Clearly, if we have 446 passengers on a boat, we might have had a handful come from the Smart train. But every rider counts, and where people live and where they work changes slowly over time. And so, Smart is still relatively new. It's in its infancy. And so over time, people may choose to, live where Smart if they work in the city because they know they can make that connection.
I had a question on that. When did the shuttle start from Smart to?
A few months ago. So
have we been able to see any increase?
Yeah, I think that's more non-commute. I think it's for, commuters kind of have their habits and they kind of hustle. They can be a little scary in terms of how focused they are on catching their train or their bus. But I think for the recreational riders, it seems to be popular. Yeah. And just for the record, that funding, Smart is not eligible for Marin County Transportation Sales Tax. So we're the pass-through agent to Smart for that money. So TAN gives us the money, we give it to Smart.
And the shuttle has just increased its hours. So,
yeah,
there may be a difference between past and for the summer, but it's summer too. It is recreation.
It's all good. The shuttle's great. Smart is fantastic. And Smart is growing. No, I mean, Smart's growing, ridership, and, some of that's going to the city. The vast majority of Smart riders use it to travel between Marin and Sonoma counties. And that's what was anticipated before they started the environmental process and when they started construction. It's still true today, but, it's still a little shot in the arm. It's helpful.
And we all keep close track of how many passengers there are, trying to make sure that we grab everyone that we can. Director Hill.
Now that I've got a grandson in San Rafael, I've been hoping you.
Good. We appreciate that. Have him ride often. He's not, we give free fares for seniors, so make sure he's not a senior.
Yeah.
Is he a senior in high school?
All right, thank you. Where are we here? No actions are required for those items. So thank you very much, Jennifer. You're a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate it. So we'll continue with item number 10, which is the third. Are we done?
9A?
You want to go to 9A?
Yeah.
I think
I'm sorry.
Usually they maybe blow through, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to smash this away. See here.
We'll wait.
All right. Well, how about we go through item 9A because it's a subset of item 9. And this is just really the financial statements that start on 57 of your packet. And this really is kind of your cash flow. So the good news is, from a revenue perspective, we've brought in 189 year to date. And we are being good with our expenses and we've spent 188. So we're still in the positive, at least on our spending and as our revenues are coming in. So I don't have to say about that. I'm happy also to answer any questions.
So now I say again, before we move on, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on items 8, 9A, or 9B?
no speakers.
No speakers. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jennifer. Did I get them all? Okay, thanks. So we'll continue to item number 10, which is the third quarterly report of judgments or settled claims. The report can be found on page 73 of your packet, and Kelly Vitale will present the report. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
Welcome. Please proceed.
For you, we have the settlements for January through March. We have a total of 14 settlements 10 of those are workers' comp and 4 were general liability. Out of the 10 workers' comp, we had 6 full compromise and release settlements, 3 stipulated, and 1 compromise and release with an open medical, and then all of the GL claims were closed in full. Do you have any questions?
Are there any comments or questions on Kelly's report? Yes, Director Maston.
Kelly, on, excuse me, the general liability, the large one in the ferry division, what? 70,000, what? Are you at liberty to say what happened or what the incident was?
Yeah, it was a passenger trip and fall.
It was a trip and fall in the ferry parking lot. Oh, right. In the disabled area.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Kelly? Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
We don't see much of you except when you have a report, but we know you're busy doing your work and
Trying to be busy, get them all settled, right?
and making sure that everyone's happy and gets what they need and that we're okay. Right. That concludes the discussion. No action required for item 10. So moving on to items 11 and 12. Jennifer, I think it's you again. The third, we should have just put those together so you didn't have to get up and down.
Giving her
Exercise, right? It's better than going to the gym. It's the third quarterly report on authorized budget adjustments and budget transfers under the General Manager's authority, as well as procurement actions. Item 11 starts on page 75, and item 12 on 79 of your packet. Jennifer, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, these are your quarterly reports that we give out to the board to kind of show what we've been doing under the General Manager's authority. I don't really have any comments. I think the last one for third quarter we talked about last month for the dispatch fuel island and for the roof rehab over at Bus, as well as the ferry terminal rehab project. So, which is on page 76. But those are the only ones for third quarter. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions on that page? All right, thank you. PC, is that yours?
12.
11 or 12?
I just finished 11. We're on to finally 12. So for item 12, again, another third quarterly report on procurement actions under the General Manager's authority. You can, review. They are on page 83, kind of color coded by operation. Happy to answer any questions on any of these contracts if you have them.
Give us just 2 seconds.
Sure.
I can see the colors that everyone has. Sure they all. All right, are there any comments or questions for Jennifer on this page? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you here. This concludes the discussion on these items. I'd like to ask if there's anyone from the public wishing to speak on items 10, 11, or 12, or address the committee under number 13, which is public comment.
We don't have any public comments in the room, but I'm going to ask Justine to pull the public comment line one last time, just in case we miss anybody that joined us at the start of the meeting. Justine, can you go ahead and pull your public comment line?
Certainly. Is there anyone that's joined us that would like to speak this morning? Please use * to unmute yourself and let me know. I am not hearing anyone this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. And with that, we've reached the end of the agenda. I'll have to say, for as much information as was on that agenda, it's been a very fast meeting. It's because I have a script here, I think. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I have a second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Hearing no objections, this concludes the meeting of the Finance Auditing Committee. Thank you for your patience.